Many historians believe yo-yos were first invented in China around 1000 BC, and humans have been experiencing the grief cycle for even longer. In 1969, after studying the common grief stages, Kubler Ross outlined a grief cycle that professionals have been teaching ever since. I use the imagery of a yo-yo in order to help you remember this natural process. I modified the cycle, adding a stage called empowerment, because the experience that you gain when you rise up from your grief is powerful. Imagine the many different phases of a yo-yo as it travels up and down. I found that this visual of the cycle of grief is easy to understand because many people feel like painful memories continue to surface and resurface in their life. The imagery of the action of a yo-yo can help us understand the steps of the grief cycle made famous by Kubler Ross. Successfully completing the grief cycle requires specific steps. Just as a yo-yo moves down and then moves upward again in a predictable cycle, the grief cycle generally follows a predictable pattern too. Follow the steps of the grief cycle as you visualize a yo-yo, beginning at the top of the cycle, or shock, and progressing in a clockwise motion until you return again to the top. Let's walk through the grief cycle, stage by stage. Stage 1 is the shock that occurs when the challenge first presents itself. If someone hands you a yo-yo and says do some tricks, you might freeze. It takes time for you to comprehend what is happening when a major trial enters your life. Stage B is the denial, confusion, or fear that occurs during the challenge. When you begin using a yo-yo, you attach it to your finger and let the yo-yo drop. This free-falling motion represents the confusion and fear that many feel during a major trial. Stage C is the bargaining phase of your challenge, or when you reach out to others asking for help, unsure of how far you are going to plummet. Stage D is the anger, anxiety, and blame you place on those who gave you this challenge in the first place. At this point, our yo-yo has reached the end of its rope, and it is spinning with uncontrolled energy. Stage E is the despair or depression that occurs when you have no energy. You feel hopeless and believe that you are not capable of fixing the problem. Here, the yo-yo is stuck at the bottom of the cycle, motionless and unable to function. Stage F is acceptance, such as when you begin to overcome the challenge by moving forward. Here, the yo-yo is working again and being pulled back up. Stage G, the final stage, is a phase I've added to the Kubler Ross grief cycle. I call it the empowerment stage. This is where you find security, meaning, and growth as you have successfully endured both the initial shock and the tap to growth of depression. You are in this stage once you accept the reality of the trial and have grown to a point where you can control your actions. You are also empowered with new skills to survive future trials for a lifetime of growth. These steps are normal reactions to abnormal events. With practice, you can become skilled and perform technical tricks as you manipulate a yo-yo. Your success in playing with the yo-yo requires your energy as you move the toy repeatedly up and down. The key to understanding the grief cycle is to know that much like the yo-yo going up and down, this cycle will be repeated multiple times in life. Recognizing the stages of this cycle will better prepare you for the cycles to come. Just know that grief after a trial and/or trauma is typical. However, you should not compare your experience and reactions with how others react to the same trial. When you or anyone you know experiences a large trauma or trial in life, a therapist will usually explain the stages of grief. When you are in the middle of the cycle, these different stages are often confusing or easily forgotten. I've found that using this image of playing with a yo-yo is a simple way to explain the cycle. I emphasize that after you pass through the despair stage, you will reach the stage of empowerment, which enables you to use newfound life skills. You can be in different stages of the grief cycle while dealing with different trials. For example, when entering the yo-yo grief cycle due to a possible loss of employment, you may also experience health problems or the death of a family member. Recovery from grief can be achieved with practice. patterns for recovery are predictable and can be understood. Once understood, your grief and the grief of others can be normalized. As a trial tapper, I believe no matter how painful the trial, I can accept a new reality and recover.